A female commented to me the other day. I had to block her noodle head ass. She said, on my last picture on Instagram, I posted, I said, I said you can't spell Claressa without saying it right. She commented and said, your body will be all right, but you need to go and get your stomach done. What? Me? You want me to go let them people cut on me and cut my stomach up and put fat and take fat out of me? So then I go to her page. She can't even compare to me, not even a little bit.
It's your girl Nylah, and I'm back with another video. Welcome back to the Vibers, the Blue Heart Gang. And if you're just getting here for the first time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, click those notification bells so that you can know every time I go live or when I do another upload. Because now we are in a relationship and yeah, we got to get into this bullshit. All right, y'all, and we are back with another psychological breakdown. And today's subject is Miss Claressa Shields. Now, before anybody starts hyperventilating in my comments talking about you're diagnosing her, calm the F down. I am not a licensed psychologist, nor am I pretending to be one. However, I am a current student of psychology, and what we're doing over here is examining public behavior through a psychological lens and not diagnosing anybody. Everything I'm discussing today comes from interviews, live streams, social media posts, and other publicly available information that Claressa, her damn self, has chosen to put in the public square. My job isn't to tell you what's happening inside her mind. My job is to recognize patterns and compare those patterns to established psychological concepts and let grown folks think for themselves. Because here's the thing, some people are private. Some people give us a glimpse into their lives. And then there are people who voluntarily hand us a complete behavioral case file with timestamps, interviews, Instagram captions, comment section crashes, songs, podcasts, and enough contradictions to teach an entire semester of the introduction to psychology. Claressa Shields has become one of those people. At this point, I'm not chasing her for content. She's practically submitting herself for my homework. So today we're going to look at some patterns that I find fascinating. Not because it's unique, because actually it's incredibly common. It's a pattern that shows up in relationships, in insecurity, in public validation, and sometimes in the stories people tell themselves to protect the reality that they want to believe. Now, we all know that there is a lot of delusion surrounding this child. So let's get into this bullshit. It literally goes without saying that Claressa absolutely has been mimicking Remy Ma, mimicking her friend Juju, and many other women online. I mean, the list goes on. We can say Franchon Cruz, and I got a wild card that I had to present to you guys pretty soon that I know she's mimicking this girl too, but I'll save that for another video. But what's interesting in this clip is she literally outlines, admits, and tells how and why she is channeling certain women. And what is interesting about all of this is not only does she openly say that this is what she's doing, she does it while diminishing their value. So there's a lot of talk about, you know, how she's copying and how she's doing this. And everybody says that, you know, people don't know what they're talking about and everything is coincidental. No, it's not coincidental. I want you to listen to Claressa in her own words. Tell us all what I've been saying at least for 7 or 8 months now, and many other bloggers. Okay, let's get into this psychology, honey.
Dang, if she can only make 600K, I'm probably only gonna be able to make 3 or 4 because women's boxing was just so far behind. Even though I felt I was a great boxer, I said it's gonna take a lot to get to the millions. So I'm like, how can I get past that? So I started doing all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, okay, what am I missing as far as in, every woman fighter or every fighter have something different that somebody else don't have. So I'm looking at, okay, why was Mia St. John so big in boxing? Why was Layla Ali so big in boxing? Why was Christy Martin so big in boxing? Why was Lucia Riker one of the big names in boxing? So I had to look at what all that they brought to the table, and I'm like, what if, in my mind, what if I can mix all of them together and get me? And not like they fighting style. I'm saying them as a woman. Like, what am I missing in me? Because I'm already the best fighter. So it's not like, oh, I need to fight like them. I said, what am I missing from my brand that they have in order for me to surpass them? Because I already got the skills, I got the belts, I got the accolades. So now that I'm looking at Layla and, you know, Christy and Mia St. John, and I'm looking at all these fighters, I say, okay, boom. Layla Ali at the time, and Ann Wolf. Layla Ali at the time had the looks, you know. And also she had her dad's name and everything, but she had the looks, she had the gift, the gab, and, you know, she knocking girls out. All right, that's one thing. Okay, so let's work on that. I already had the gift, the gab. I already know I was a pretty girl, so I'm like, let me tap into my beauty more, because I didn't really care about it at first. I'm like, I think I'm beautiful, and that's all that mattered to me. I didn't really care about how everybody eyes see me, right? Which I still don't, because it's like everybody's ugly to somebody and everybody's pretty to somebody. So I'm like, okay, boom. So then boom. Okay, I see, all right, she got the gift, the gab, she got the looks, and she knocking girls out. Okay, let me add knockouts to my resume. Let me add the looks. Let me make sure because at first everybody was telling me not to talk trash. I said, I'm going to talk trash and I'm going to do it better because I actually like that, right? So then boom, I go and look at Mia St. John, and I honestly, I'm not trying to be funny, but to me, Mia St. John couldn't fight like that. But she had big breasts. And she was a very beautiful, pretty woman, right? With the curls and the makeup. And I said, okay. So they wasn't looking at her for her boxing. They was looking at her because she coming in there with the big knockers. But you know, she would fight you though. She wasn't just trash. She'll fight you. What I'm saying, as far as skill wise, she wasn't like the best skill. But she'll go in there, she'll fight you. But it's like she got these big knockers going everywhere. And then, you know, she going in the ring with, you know, her face and everything. Like the girl, like she's a bad, good looking woman. So I said, okay. She is, you know, selling the beauty part of it. Like, she makes sure her hair done, her makeup done, her nails done, her breast is propped up. Like, this is, you know what I'm saying? So I said, okay, let me channel that. Let me channel some of that in areas when I can without it affecting my training. So, all right, boom. And then you got Christy Martin. And y'all gonna laugh what I'm about to say about Christy Martin, but it's gonna make y'all laugh. Christy Martin was not a pretty woman. She's actually she was very manly. I watched her documentary. I love her story on how she, you know, escaped and, you know, fought her husband and all this crazy stuff. And I get it. But she was just one of them women that you knew in her fight, it was going to be a dog fight. You knew she was coming with Papoose in Africa. You knew she was coming with the big punches and the stuff to try to knock you out. Like, she was like just rough and rugged. And when she showed up, she came in her pants and her nice little shirt. But you knew she was, you know, she was a white woman who was like, I'm a strong, mean, badass chick, you know? So she brought that to the table. So now that, and then also she got a storyline. Her dad was a preacher and stuff like that. So she's the coal miner. No, her dad was a coal miner. So she's the coal miner's daughter. And so I'm looking at these women and I'm like, okay, all right. So I have to figure out how to incorporate something from each of these women to where in boxing, I know my skills and I know what I can do inside the ring is easy, and I'm gonna beat all these girls, but how can I take it to the next level? So now that I'm strategizing, I'm changing up everything, I said, you know what? All right, I got it. You know, and then I even got into doing stuff that I actually am passionate about is, you know, community work, training kids. I've trained over 2,500, 3,000 kids in Flint, Michigan. I taught them how to box, how to control their anger, breathing exercises, how to deal with the cope of, you know, death. I'm really good with kids. So,
all right, let's get into it. So for quite some time now, People online have noticed what they believe is a pattern of Claressa borrowing from Remy Ma, from her fashion choices to even sometimes her mannerism. You know how Remy sometimes says, "Are you dumb?" Claressa starts saying that. You know how Remy Ma has a strong Bronx accent because that's literally where she was from. Sometimes Claressa even mimics that. So, even down to publicly asking Remy for styling advice years ago. Those messages have circulated online for at least a year. But then Claressa, unintentionally in this video, is giving us something even more interesting. She's literally admitting that she channels other women. Think about that for a second. She didn't say she was inspired. She didn't say that she admired them. She said she channels them. Now, from a psychological standpoint, that's a very interesting choice of words because it suggests she's describing herself as someone who intentionally pieces together aspects of other women to create the version of herself that she wants to be. And this is where it can get a little deeper. When she explained what she admired about these women, notice what she focused on. Not their discipline, not their resilience, not their business acumen, not their leadership, not their mindset. She talked about physical characteristics. One had big breasts. Another, Nylah presented beauty. And she talked about their features and that feature and all of this kind of stuff, almost like she was mentally creating a collage. Psychology has a concept called identity construction. And that's the process of building our sense of self by incorporating traits or values and behaviors and characteristics from people that we admire. We all might do it to some degree. Like some of us might mimic our mothers, our big sisters, cousins, whatever. Kids do it, athletes do it, entrepreneurs, content creators. It's somewhat normal, right? The question isn't whether we borrow from others. The question is whether underneath all that borrowing, there's a stable sense of who we are. Because when someone appears to constantly collect pieces of other people, the natural psychological question is, who are they when no one else is in the room? Then something else caught my attention. There's one boxer that she didn't really compliment, and that was Christy. She talked about and emphasize that this woman is manly. And what's interesting about that is one of the longest running public criticisms directed towards Claressa herself has been people questioning her femininity and making masculine comparisons. So psychologically, that creates another interesting possibility. Sometimes the traits we reject most aggressively in other people are the very traits we spent years defending in ourselves. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as projection or reaction formation, depending on the context. I'm not saying that's definitely what's happening here. I'm saying that it's a pattern, baby. Because when someone repeatedly distances themselves from a characteristic that's also been publicly attached to them, psychologists often become curious about whether they're rejecting the label or rejecting what the label represents emotionally. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. This ain't even about boxing. This is all about identity and self-image. It's about the difference between becoming the best version of yourself and assembling yourself from pieces of everybody around you. At some point, if you're constantly channeling some other woman, borrowing from another woman, admiring her body, adopting her style, defending your relationship against another woman, and comparing yourself to everybody around you, you eventually have to ask a very simple question. Where the fuck does Claressa Shields begin and what does everyone else end? Because confidence isn't usually built by collecting other people's identities. It's built by becoming comfortable with your own identity. It's really interesting, y'all, and it's disturbing. Not to get off subject, but as someone myself, I went through a thing a couple of times on YouTube as a creator where I was being mimicked. My voice, my mannerisms, little things that I say and do, literally, I can point to 2 to 3 women that were doing it exactly like me while having proximity to me and pretending that they weren't. Come to find out, each and every last one of them had a psychological issue. And typically they attacked me after I called them out. So we'll talk about that at another time, but this is on a spectrum, this behavior, and it gets pretty dangerous sometimes. Some people that are doing exactly what Claressa is doing has sometimes harmed the people that they were mimicking so that they could literally become them. Let's continue. So Claressa took to social media the other day and posted this photo of herself and Papoose from the BET Awards weekend, along with several interviews they did together. And the caption that she chose is "A Queen and Her King." Now, I want you to pause and really think about that from a psychological perspective, because this isn't just some cute little caption. Captions are a communication. They're little windows into how people want a relationship to be perceived. At the time of this post, Papoose is still legally married. That isn't an opinion, that's a matter of public record. Their relationship also became public only after Remy Ma publicly addressed it. Up until then, this wasn't a relationship they were openly presenting to the world. She was a secret, okay? Now, she likes to go around saying that this was a private relationship, but we know every woman that is running around with somebody else's husband is in a private relationship, because you can't publicly be the hoe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can, but most people don't want to, but maybe she is right now. And let me tell y'all something. If this relationship ever crashes and burns publicly, and I'm not saying it will, well, I kind of am, but I'm saying when it does, the internet is going to have an absolute field day. Not because people enjoy seeing relationships fail, because I really don't like to see that happen to people, but because of how much energy has gone into convincing the public that this one is untouchable. I mean, y'all already know this girl out here making songs and everything, which we're going to get into that in this video as well. Every time we turn around, there's another public declaration, honey. He's happy, he's faithful, he's my king, he's my provider. Then, you know, like I said, we get these songs, we get interviews, we get captions, we get stories about what goes on in the bedroom. We get another interview explaining why this relationship is so freaking amazing. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, who is all of this convincing? Girl, who is it that you are trying to convince? Because secure relationships typically don't require a weekly press conference. Now compare that to the woman the public watched him with for nearly 2 decades. Whether you like Remy or not is irrelevant. How many interviews did you hear where she had to repeatedly convince us that Pap loved her? How many times did she need to remind everybody that he was happy? How many times did she need to campaign for public approval of her relationship? She really didn't. And why? Because people generally don't spend a lot of time advertising what they believe is obvious. The confidence was reflected in the way they interacted, the way he spoke about her, the way they carried themselves publicly. The relationship, at least from the outside looking in, did much of the talking for them. That's why Claressa's approach is psychologically interesting. The louder the public validation becomes, the more people naturally start wondering why so much validation is needed in the first place. And that's not haters. That's human psychology. People instinctively become skeptical when they feel like they're being sold something. The more someone insists that everything is perfect, the more the audience starts asking, but why are you working so hard to convince us? What's equally fascinating is that she appears to interpret almost every single criticism as jealousy. And that needs to be broken down by itself. Y'all, remind me to do a video right now. Put it in the comment section so I don't forget. Remind me to do a specific psychological breakdown on why this child believes everybody is jealous, hating, and broke. But what if, just hear me out. What if some people aren't jealous? What if they're simply recognizing patterns? Because sometimes when everybody around you is pointing at the same damn red flag, It's easier to label them as haters than it is to ask yourself whether they're seeing something you're emotionally invested in overlooking. And baby, history has a funny way of humbling all of us. That's why I always tell people, don't force strangers to validate your relationship. If it's solid, baby, it's gonna speak for itself. Love don't usually need a public relations department. I'm gonna say it again, and y'all say it in the comment section with me. Love does not need a public relations department. But you know who do need that public relations department? Claressa needs that for herself, her own personal PR team. But love doesn't need that, baby.
That's all I got. Soon as you, and that's another thing I was gonna say. If you don't, Mark, I'm not a person who needs to be like, you know what I'm saying? So, but I tell you what, people who I don't like or who I'm not a fan of, I just don't come to their page. I don't follow them on the internet. You know? I just steer clear. So for me, it's like, dang. Why do folks who call themselves have an issue with me? They want to come to my page. They want to talk trash. They want to leave insulting comments. And some people I'll be trying to have grace with. I'll inbox them like, hey, you know, you was a little disrespectful. Well, I would like you not to do that again, right? And they say, oh, Queen, what did I do? And I didn't know you would see the comment. Because now what I do is I screenshot what they said. Ooh. I DM it to them. So, if I ever block you or something, I know why.
Why in the world would this highly decorated athlete, celebrity, millionaire, all those things, why in the hell would she be chasing down comments of trolls? And then she's not even being honest, because we have all seen that she will create a burner account, several of them, and literally be in people's comment sections, attacking them and antagonizing them. Not to mention, we are never going to forget how she went and asked her friend Nigeria to go behind the scenes and spread a smear campaign on Geisha 305. I mean, girl, okay? The receipts be receipting, honey. And I already know y'all saw her take to social media and share this post and then just basically confirm for us a lot of things. So she says, message, you dumb bees inboxing my man Papoose is diabolical. That's why we block y'all. First of all, two things, baby. Thank you for confirming that you be blocking people from Papoose's accounts. And the only reason why you're bothered by what's going on in Remy's husband's inbox is because you were in his inbox while he was married and while he was messing around with other women, and y'all in a relationship right now. There is a strange amount of cognitive dissonance that this woman is suffering from when she says this stuff. Like, how are you in like some sort of projection mode, maybe? Okay, because like, remember when you were inboxing Papoose in 2020?
Called Stevenson fight.
Yeah.
And then
you shook her hand and said you were a fan.
Yeah, I happened to be walking to my seat and I looked.
Happened to be.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, is that Claressa Shields? I've always been a fan of her.
Yeah, I got a video he sent me back in 2000 and was it 20 or something?
So he's been a fan.
Are you trying to convince us that it's not right for other women to be in a man's inbox? Because remember, y'all was quote unquote just friends. It was just innocent. Nothing was going on while he was married. Girl, stop it. This is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance occurs when a person's current beliefs or standards, and I stress current beliefs, right? Or their current standards conflict with their own previous behavior. The mind doesn't like contradictions. One way that people reduce that discomfort is by changing the story or just basically lying. So instead of saying, you know, that's how relationships sometimes begin, it becomes women who DM my man are weird. The standard is always changing depending on which side of the situation they're on. But then in psychology, there's also this thing called reaction formation. And that's a defense mechanism where someone expresses the opposite of what they unconsciously fear. So like if somebody is afraid of appearing weak, they become aggressively tough outwardly. People who are worried about constantly being betrayed, they put a lot of emphasis on loyalty. So in a lot of ways, this bird is literally always trying to psych herself out as well as us, okay? This is literally some high-level sorcery she thinks that she's engaging in. She really thinks that if she does these things and says these things, that she's convincing us that she's secure and that her relationship is just great. So when you step back and look at the entire picture, this really isn't about one Instagram caption or one interview, one song. Child, I didn't even bring up the song yet in this video. So let's do it right now. Let's think about this song. That song was declaring that this man is faithful, that he's a protector, that he's a provider, that it's a love that's true while he was married, while he is still married. You don't get that much more delusional. And if you know, like I know, when it comes to gathering up spiritual debt, karma, whatever it is that you want to call it, depending on what discipline you come from, you already know what this is going to give. She can only get one outcome from this relationship, and that is the opposite of everything that she is trying to portray, simply because of how she went into it and out of her own mouth. I am a woman that manifests. I am a woman that speaks things into my life that a lot of people would never, ever even understand. Like, I have spoken the biggest blessings into my life, and I know that anybody can. But just like you can speak blessings, you can speak curses. There is an energy attached to every single move that you make and everything that you do based on your intention. And while we're not in her head, so we can't necessarily say what her intention is, but all you have to do is listen to the lyrics. Her intention is to make the woman that he's currently married to jealous or insignificant, or make that relationship less significant, while pretending like she wants to actually merge families and be a stepmother and all this kind of stuff. You don't have to shit on the prior wife or relationship to validate yours. That's bullshit. But she cannot help herself because she knows that she is wrapped up in Delulu land. So this is all about a pattern. It isn't just about one caption or one comment section crash out. This is a pattern. Psychology teaches us that individual behaviors can be random. Patterns, they tell a much richer story. So over the course of this relationship, we've watched repeated public reassurance, repeated declarations of love and loyalty, repeated attempts to validate the relationship in front of an audience, and emotional reactions to perceived threats. And we even saw messaging that often seems designed to convince the public that what they're seeing is exactly what she's experiencing. It's crazy. So what does that mean? Because it doesn't mean we know exactly what's going on in her head, but psychology doesn't require us to diagnose someone to recognize behavioral themes. When someone is always asking and seeking external validation for the same thing, psychologists discuss concepts like reassurance seeking and overcompensation. When a person's current position is always in conflict with their current circumstances that have been publicly acknowledged, cognitive dissonance becomes an interesting framework for understanding how people reconcile competing realities. It's like literally cuckoo. And when criticism is consistently getting framed as jealousy or hatred, it's easier to dismiss that information than to genuinely conceptualize what she's hearing and seeing and the feedback. She can't do that because that would involve her being accountable for her actions and for what she's actually really experiencing. So whether you agree with my analysis or think I'm completely off base, I hope this conversation can encourage you to Pay close attention to patterns, not just celebrities, but in your own life, because behavior leaves clues, baby. Not every clue tells a whole story, but when enough clues begin pointing in the same damn direction, it's at least worth asking better questions. And that's all psychology really is, learning to ask better questions before we rush to conclusions. And if you like my commentary, please click like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't like it, you can still comment, you can still subscribe, because you're bound to return and find something that will entertain you or be of intellectual benefit. Let me know down in the comment section whose psychology you guys want me to break down next.